The young waitress gently slid a warm plate toward the homeless boy, huddled in the corner booth, whispering, "It's on the house, sweetie." For months, she fed him without questions or judgment. Then came the day when 6 black government SUVs surrounded the small diner, and a distinguished man in an expensive suit walked in holding an envelope that would change everything. Who was this homeless child? And why did his identity bring the most powerful people in the state to this humble establishment? Sofia Ramirez was 34 years old, the head waitress at Magnolia's Diner, a weathered establishment nestled between a pawn shop and a dollar store in the outskirts of Portland. With copper-toned skin that glowed despite the harsh fluorescent lighting, and dark curls often hastily pinned back, Sofia moved through the diner with practiced efficiency. Her morning routine never varied, rising at 4:30 a.m., a quick shower in her studio apartment, a 10-minute bus ride to open the diner by 5:30. She'd brew the first pot of coffee, prep the counters, and turn on the neon open sign before the early rush of factory workers arrived. Few customers knew that Sofia had once been on the verge of homelessness herself. After her divorce 7 years ago, she'd slept in her car for 3 months while working double shifts, saving every penny until she could afford the security deposit on her apartment. Those nights, curled in the back seat of her Honda with a blanket that smelled of fryer oil, had carved compassion into her like initials in wet cement. Sofia had no children of her own, a quiet grief she carried, and her remaining family was scattered across the country. Her small apartment held only a few framed photos: her late grandmother in Oaxaca, her younger brother's college graduation, and a group picture from the shelter where she volunteered twice monthly. Morning Mija called Hector, the 68-year-old cook who'd given Sofia her first job when she barely spoke English. Ready for another day of feeding the hungry masses? Sofia tied her faded burgundy apron around her waist and smiled, the small scar above her lip crinkling. "Always, Hector. It's what we do best." Little did she know that this ordinary Tuesday would begin a chain of events that would transform not just her life, but the lives of everyone at Magnolia's Diner. Magnolia's Diner was a Portland institution, though you wouldn't know it from the chipped turquoise counter or the vinyl booths patched with silver duct tape. What kept customers returning was the food, hearty, honest, and affordable, and the staff who remembered your order after just one visit. The morning rhythm was as predictable as the ancient wall clock that ran 5 minutes fast. By 6 a.m., the construction workers arrived, demanding coffee strong enough to wake the dead. At 7, the hospital staff from the night shift wandered in, scrubs wrinkled, eyes heavy. The 8 o'clock crowd consisted of retirees who lingered for hours over bottomless coffee refills, debating politics and reminiscing about the neighborhood before gentrification began creeping in. Sofia knew them all, their orders, their stories, their troubles. She carried mental notes about whose husband was sick, whose daughter had just graduated, whose disability check was running late. These details weren't necessary for serving breakfast, but they were essential to Sofia's belief that a good meal came with dignity. "Order up," Hector's voice carried over the sizzle of the grill. "2 Denver omelets for table 5. Sofia balanced the plates along her arm with practiced ease. "Here you go, Mr. Peterson. And yes, I remembered extra hot sauce," she said, placing the bottle beside his plate before he could ask. The elderly man grinned. "You're an angel, Sofia." Rain tapped against the windows, a constant companion in Portland winters. The diner's warmth fogged the glass, creating a barrier between the comfortable interior and the harsh streets outside, where sodden tents clustered under the highway overpass 2 blocks away. Outside that protective bubble of warmth and comfort, the city's homelessness crisis grew worse with each passing month. New encampments appeared weekly, and the shelter where Sofia volunteered had started turning people away. Too many needs, too few resources. Sofia first noticed him on a particularly bitter January morning. The thermometer outside the diner had dipped to an unusual 28 degrees, and frost patterns etched the windows like delicate lace. The boy slipped in during the mid-morning lull, when the breakfast rush had ended, but lunch was still an hour away. He couldn't have been older than 12, though his eyes held the wariness of someone much older. His dark hair hung in unwashed strands across his forehead, and his too thin frame was buried beneath layers of mismatched clothing. Most telling was the large, weather-beaten backpack he clutched to his chest like armor. He chose the booth farthest from the door, but with a clear view of both exits. The calculated choice of someone who needed escape routes. Sofia watched as he carefully arranged his belongings, producing a tattered paperback book and a small notebook with bent corners. When she approached with her order pad, the boy tensed visibly. "What can I get you this morning?" Sofia asked, her voice deliberately casual. Just water, please," he mumbled, not meeting her eyes. His accent suggested he might be from somewhere in the southwest. Sofia nodded without comment and returned, with a large glass of ice water and a small plate of lemon slices. "It's better with lemon when it's cold out," she said with a smile, before moving away, giving him space. For 20 minutes, he sipped the water slowly, turning pages in his book, but rarely seeming to read. His eyes darted to the door whenever it opened, shoulders hunching at the sound of male voices. When a police car cruised by outside, he slid lower in his seat. As closing time approached, Sofia noticed he'd been carefully collecting the sugar packets from the table dispenser, slipping them into his pocket when he thought no one was watching. The next day, he returned at precisely the same time, and the day after that. Same booth, same request for water, same worn backpack that never left his side, same hunger that he tried desperately to hide. Sofia recognized the signs. Before her divorce, she taught middle school for 8 years. She knew what child poverty looked like, what fear looked like, what it meant when a kid rationed 1 glass of water over the course of an hour in a warm diner in winter. On the boy's 5th visit, the temperature dropped further as an unusual cold snap gripped Portland. Outside, sleet tapped against the windows, and the homeless encampments would be muddy lakes by morning. Sofia watched as the boy entered, his thin jacket damp, his fingers red with cold, as he opened his book. When he asked for his usual water, Sofia nodded and walked back to the kitchen. She leaned against the doorway, watching Hector flip pancakes with practiced ease. "Hector, you know that order of tomato soup and grilled cheese that Mrs. Abernathy sent back because the soup was too orangey?" Hector snorted. "Still sitting. Here, what about it? Is it still good?" Sofia asked, trying to sound casual. The cook followed her gaze toward the corner booth. "Ah," he said, understanding immediately. "Suddenly became very good. In fact, I made it fresh about 2 minutes ago. Probably needs someone to eat it before it goes to waste." Sofia's smile was quick and grateful. She arranged the soup and sandwich. On a tray, added a small cup of hot chocolate with extra whipped cream, and headed to the boys' table. "I'm so sorry," she said loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. "We have an extra order that's going to be thrown out. The customer changed her mind." She set the food down, continuing as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "It seems like such a waste on a cold day like this. Would you mind helping us out?" The boy's eyes widened, suspicious but unable to hide the hunger that flared. At the sight of steam rising from the soup bowl, he glanced around the diner, seeking the trap. "It's really okay," Sofia said more quietly. "No strings." After a moment's hesitation, the boy nodded once, a barely perceptible dip of his chin. Sofia placed silverware wrapped in a napkin beside the plate and walked away without lingering, knowing instinctively that hovering would only increase his discomfort. From behind the counter, she pretended to wipe glasses while watching him. The first spoonful of soup was cautious, the second was faster. By the third, he was eating with the controlled urgency of someone who knew this might be his only real meal of the day. He broke the grilled cheese into 4 careful pieces, wrapping 2 in a napkin and slipping them into his backpack when he thought no one was watching. Sofia didn't cry easily, but she felt the burn behind her eyes as she turned away to give him privacy. Over the next 3 weeks, a delicate dance evolved between Sofia and the boy. He would arrive at 10:15 a.m., precisely when the diner hit its mid-morning lull, and sit in the same corner booth. At first, he continued to order only water, but Sofia always found a reason to bring him food. The new cook is training and made too many blueberry pancakes. A customer changed their mind about this breakfast burrito. We're trying a new soup recipe and need someone to taste it. Each excuse was delivered casually, requiring no gratitude or explanation. Sometimes Sofia would place the food and walk away immediately, giving him space. Other times, she might linger for a moment, making the smallest of observations. That looks like an interesting book. Those fingerless gloves are smart for reading in winter. The boy's responses evolved from tense nods to occasional one-word answers. By the 3rd week, he had graduated to short phrases, though his eyes still darted nervously toward the door when it opened. Sofia began to notice changes. His visits stretched longer, from 30 minutes to sometimes an hour or more. Though still guarded, his posture relaxed incrementally. He started bringing different books, and one day, Sofia spotted him writing in his notebook, something he'd never done before. Most telling was the day Sofia delivered a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup, what had become his apparent favorite, and received a barely audible "thank you, Mom," in return. The words were soft, but they bridged a gap that had seemed uncrossable. Other staff noticed their routine. Hector began preparing extra food without being asked. Darlene, the weekend waitress, followed Sofia's lead without question. Even Pablo, the dishwasher who rarely spoke to anyone, started leaving a clean glass of water on the counter when he saw the boy enter. No one asked the boy's name. No one inquired where he went after leaving the diner. No one mentioned the dirt under his fingernails, or that he wore the same 3 shirts in rotation. The unspoken agreement among the staff was simple. In Magnolia's diner, the boy would find food without interrogation and warmth without judgment. What Sofia didn't know, couldn't, and know, was that their silent kindness was the only constant in a life that had become dangerously unpredictable. "You running a charity I don't know about?" The question came from Victor Mendez, the diner's owner, who visited only twice a month to collect receipts and complain about profit margins. A stocky man with thinning hair and expensive cologne, he stood beside the register, flipping through the daily logs with a frown. "I don't know what you mean," Sofia replied, though the sudden tightness in her chest betrayed her. Victor tapped the receipt book. 3 weeks of daily voided meals all around the same time? You think I'm stupid? He gestured toward the corner booth where the boy had sat earlier. "That homeless kid, right? The one Marge from the bookstore called about?" Sofia hadn't realized others had noticed. "He's just a child, Victor." "He's bad for business," Victor countered. "Mrs. Chen from the real estate office mentioned it yesterday, said her clients were uncomfortable." He lowered his voice. "Look, I get it. You feel sorry for him, but this isn't a soup kitchen. We've got paying customers who don't want to see that kind of thing while they're eating." "That kind of thing?" Sofia's voice sharpened. "You mean a hungry child? Don't twist my words." Victor sighed, softening his approach. "Sofia, you're my best waitress. Customers love you, but we can't afford to feed every stray that wanders in. The winter's been slow already." From the kitchen doorway, Hector cleared his throat. Actually, the food's coming from our employee meals. We've been pooling them. A lie, but a noble one. Victor looked unconvinced. And what happens when he brings friends? Or when adult homeless start showing up expecting handouts? He's alone, Sofia said quietly. Always alone. Not anymore, came a new voice. Bethany Winters, the diner's longtime morning regular, who ran the community bank, stood beside her table, purse in hand. I couldn't help overhearing. Whatever that boy's bill is, add it to mine from now on. Victor's expression faltered. Bethany wasn't just any customer. She brought business meetings to the diner 3 times a week. That's not necessary, he began. Awkwardly. I believe it is, Bethany countered. Her smile pleasant but firm. Unless you'd prefer I'd take my breakfast meetings to Jefferson's Cafe instead? The threat hung in the air like the scent of burned toast. After the confrontation with Victor, Sofia knew her impromptu food donations weren't sustainable. That evening, she sat at her small kitchen table and reworked her budget, crossing out new winter boots and dental checkup, redirecting those funds to what she privately labeled corner booth meals. When the boy arrived the next day, Sofia was ready. She approached with a laminated card. We're trying something new, she explained. It's a loyalty program. After 5 glasses of water, you get a free meal. The lie was transparent, but it offered something they both needed, a way to preserve his dignity. The boy studied the card, his intelligence evident in his skeptical expression. Why? He asked, the first unprompted word he'd spoken to her. Sofia considered various answers before settling on the truth. Because when I was younger, someone helped me. Now, I can help someone else. She left the card on the table and walked away, giving him space to accept or reject her offer. Later that day, she visited the second-hand store during her break and purchased 2 thermal shirts, a weatherproof jacket, and a new backpack, sturdy with multiple compartments and a waterproof cover. The cost represented her entire entertainment budget for the month, but as she walked back to the diner with the bag hidden inside her tote, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. That night, temperatures were forecast to drop below freezing. In her apartment, Sofia filled the backpack with the clothes, added 3 protein bars, a reusable water bottle, hand warmers, and a small first aid kit. At the last moment, she tucked in a gift card to the 24-hour laundromat with enough credit for several loads. She didn't place the backpack directly on his table the next morning. Instead, she wrapped it in brown paper, labeled it Lost and Found Item, and kept it behind the counter. When the boy came in, shivering more visibly than usual, his fingers blue-tinged with cold, she approached his table. Someone left this, she said. It's been here for weeks, and no one's claimed it. Company policy says if no one claims lost items within 30 days, staff can take them. I thought you might need it more than I do. The doubt in his eyes mingled with desperation as he looked at the new backpack. Sofia placed it on the empty seat across from him and walked away, pretending not to notice the tears he quickly wiped away with his sleeve. On a particularly dreary Tuesday in February, the boy didn't show up. Sofia found herself checking the clock repeatedly, her eyes drifting to the empty corner booth. By 11:30, the grilled cheese sandwich Hector had prepared sat cold and untouched. In the kitchen, maybe he found somewhere better, Darlene suggested, not unkindly. The next day, the boy was absent again. And the next. By the 4th day, Sofia's concern had evolved into worry that gnawed at her concentration, causing her to mix up orders and forget refills. On the 5th day of his absence, Sofia was wiping down the counter when Officer Rivera entered. The diner, a regular customer and childhood friend, she often stopped by during her patrol shifts. "Hey, Elena, the usual?" Sofia asked, already reaching for a mug. Officer Rivera shook her head. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something. She pulled out her phone and showed Sofia a photo. Have you seen this kid? There was an incident at the camp under the Morrison Bridge last night. Some teenagers were harassing homeless people and this boy was reportedly injured. Sofia's heart sank as she recognized the tattered jacket and dark hair of their missing visitor. Is he okay? Where is he now? We don't know. By the time patrol arrived, most people had scattered. Someone mentioned he was hanging around this area. Elena studied Sofia's reaction. You know him, don't you? Sofia hesitated. He comes in sometimes. For water. Later that evening, after closing, Sofia walked to 3 nearby homeless encampments, asking about the boy. No one had seen him, or perhaps no one was willing to tell a stranger. She returned home to find a community Facebook group buzzing with judgmental comments about her search. That waitress from Magnolia's is looking for some homeless kid, probably the same one stealing from the convenience store. Why is she encouraging them to stay in our neighborhood? My property values are suffering enough. Maybe she should adopt him if she's so concerned. Bet that would change her tune fast. Sofia had never considered herself naive, but the cruelty shocked her. Sitting alone in her apartment, doubts crept in. Was she really helping the boy, or just making herself feel better? What if she was enabling a dangerous situation? Should she have called social services instead of feeding him? For the first time, she wondered if Hector had been right weeks ago when he'd quietly warned, "You can't save everyone, Sofia. Sometimes helping just makes it harder when you can't fix everything." On the 10th day of the boy's absence, Sofia sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, surrounded by old photo albums. One faded image showed a teenage Sofia standing beside an elderly woman outside a small community kitchen. The handwritten caption read, "First day volunteering with Abuela 2003. Sofia traced her grandmother's face with her fingertip, remembering how the old woman had never turned away anyone who came to her door hungry, not even during the hardest times when their own pantry was nearly bare. La compasión no necesita justificación, her grandmother would say. Compassion needs no justification. Sofia closed the album and reached for her phone, opening the community Facebook group where the negative comments had shaken her resolve. She began typing, "My name is Sofia Ramirez. I'm the waitress some of you have been discussing. Yes, I've been helping a homeless child who came to our diner hungry. I don't know his full story. I don't know if my help is enough. But I do know this. In my grandmother's kitchen, we were taught that you never need a reason to show kindness, only excuses not to. If you're concerned about homelessness in our community, the Portland Outreach Center needs volunteers this weekend. I'll be there Saturday at 9 a.m. Feel free to join me instead of posting here." She pressed post before she could reconsider, then pulled out a small notebook where she began listing local youth shelters, outreach programs, and resources. If when the boy returned, she would be better prepared. The next morning, Sofia arrived at the diner an hour early. In the quiet kitchen, she prepared a backpack of non-perishable food items, a new notebook with pens, a prepaid phone with her number programmed in, and information on safe youth shelters. Hector found her arranging these items carefully, a determined set to her jaw. "What if he doesn't come back?" he asked gently. Sofia zipped the backpack closed. "Then I'll keep it ready until he does. And if he never does, I'll find someone else who needs it." "And the people saying you're wasting your time?" Sofia placed the backpack behind the counter. "My abuela used to say that kindness is never wasted. It just doesn't always work the way we expect." She tied her apron with renewed purpose. "I can't fix homelessness, Hector, but I can make sure one kid knows someone gives a damn." As she flipped the sign to open, Sofia made a silent promise to the absent boy. She would be there, ready for however long it took. On a clear Thursday morning, 2 weeks since the boy's disappearance, Sofia was refilling salt shakers when the diner fell suddenly, uncommonly silent. She looked up to see 6 black SUVs with tinted windows and government plates pulling into the small parking lot, forming a precise semicircle around the entrance. "What the hell?" Hector whispered, spatula suspended mid-flip. The sleek vehicles gleamed in the morning sun, their official appearance jarringly out of place in this working-class neighborhood. Several customers reached for phones, recording as men and women in dark suits emerged from the vehicles, speaking into earpieces with practiced discretion. From the center SUV stepped a distinguished-looking man in his 60s. His tailored charcoal suit and commanding presence immediately suggested authority, but it was the leather portfolio tucked under his arm that drew Sofia's attention. When he entered the diner, conversations halted completely. He scanned the room before approaching the counter where Sofia stood frozen, coffee pot halfway to a customer's cup. "Ms. Sofia Ramirez." His voice was deep, cultured with the faintest trace of an accent. Sofia set down the coffee pot. "Yes, that's me. My name is Gabriel Ortega, Director of Special Operations for the Department of Justice." He presented identification that Sofia barely registered. "I'd like to speak with you privately about a young man you've been helping." Victor, who had rushed from his office at the commotion, stepped forward. "Whatever this is about, Ms. Ramirez has my full cooperation. You can use my office." Inside the cramped room, Director Ortega carefully placed a photograph on the desk. It showed a middle-aged man with the boy's same dark eyes. "This is Fernando Vega, formerly one of our most valuable undercover agents in dismantling the Sinaloa cartel's northern operations. 3 months ago, he was killed after his cover was compromised." Ortega paused, allowing Sofia to process this information. "The boy you've been feeding is Miguel Vega, his son." Sofia's hand flew to her mouth. "Is he okay?" "He disappeared 2 weeks ago and he's safe," Ortega assured her. "We've had him in protective custody since the incident at the homeless camp. Those weren't random teenagers attacking homeless people. They were cartel associates searching for Miguel." "I don't understand," Sofia said, struggling to reconcile the quiet, hungry boy with this unfolding drama. "Why was he homeless? Why was he alone?" "Because," Ortega said gravely, "Miguel witnessed his father's murder and escaped with something the cartel desperately wants back." Sofia stood in stunned silence as Director Ortega continued, his voice softening. "After Fernando's death, Miguel went into survival mode. He fled with his father's encrypted phone, the item the cartel is after. It contains evidence that could bring down their entire Pacific Northwest operation." Ortega paused. "Miguel didn't trust anyone. He'd been taught protocols for extreme situations. Keep moving, avoid official channels, trust no one. So he became invisible, joining the homeless population where he could blend in." "But why come to the diner every day?" Sofia asked. "Wasn't that risky?" Ortega nodded. "Extremely, but it was also the only connection he had left to normal life. His father and he used to have breakfast together every Sunday at a diner like this one." He reached into his portfolio and removed an envelope sealed with an official Justice Department stamp. "Before we moved Miguel to a secure location, he insisted on writing this. He wouldn't leave until we promised to deliver it to the kind waitress." Ortega extended the envelope. "We've been monitoring the situation from a distance, watching who showed him kindness. We needed to ensure his safety before making contact." Sofia accepted the envelope with trembling fingers. "Ms. Ramirez," Ortega said formally, "on behalf of the Department of Justice, I want to thank you for what you did. Without ever knowing who he was, you provided Miguel with the only safety and normalcy he had. Our psychologists believe your consistent kindness was crucial to his mental stability during this traumatic period. The door opened, and a woman in a dark suit appeared. "The Attorney General is on the line, sir." Ortega nodded. "I'll be right. There." Turning back to Sofia, he extended his hand. "You'll be pleased to know that Miguel is now in a safe house with his aunt, his father's sister. She's a former Marine and has the training to protect him until the trial." He smiled slightly. "Miguel asked me to tell you that he finished the book you recommended. Said it helped him understand that heroes come in many forms." As they walked back into the diner, Sofia was stunned to see what awaited her. Every agent present stood at attention. From the back of the room, Hector and the staff watched with wide eyes. The customers, many of whom had witnessed her quiet interactions with the boy over the past months, had risen to their feet. "Ms. Ramirez," Ortega announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, "sometimes the greatest service to justice doesn't come from those with badges, but from those with compassion." 6 months after the Justice Department's dramatic visit, Magnolia's diner had transformed. A small brass plaque now adorned the corner booth. "Reserved for those who need it most." The booth was never empty for long, sometimes occupied by homeless individuals, sometimes by veterans, sometimes by struggling students. No one who sat there ever received a bill. Sofia kept Miguel's letter framed behind the counter, though she never showed it to curious customers who asked. Some things remained sacred. She'd heard from Director Ortega twice. Brief official updates confirming Miguel's safety and the successful prosecution of key cartel members thanks to the evidence on Fernando's phone. On a warm July morning, Victor gathered the staff before opening. "I have an announcement," he said, uncharacteristically solemn. "I've decided to officially launch the Corner Booth program in all 3 of my diners." He handed out brochures outlining a formalized system for providing meals to those in need, along with connections to local resources. "What changed your mind?" Sofia asked, remembering his initial resistance. Victor shrugged, a hint of embarrassment in his expression. "My daughter asked why the man on TV was thanking the nice waitress from our diner, trying to explain to a 7-year-old why I'd initially opposed feeding a hungry child." He shook his head. Some lessons hit hard. The program gained attention. Beyond Portland, a national news segment featured Magnolia's diner, highlighting how one waitress's simple act of kindness had sparked a movement. Other restaurants across the country began implementing similar initiatives. On the 1-year anniversary of Miguel's first visit, Sofia arrived at work to find a package waiting. Inside was a dog-eared copy of The Little Prince, with a note on Justice Department letterhead. "M thought you should have this. He's doing well in school now. Some stories have happy endings after all." That afternoon, a thin teenager entered the diner, her wary eyes scanning for exits, a familiar behavior that Sofia immediately recognized. Without hesitation, Sofia poured a glass of water, added a lemon slice, and approached the corner booth. "Welcome," she said, placing the water down gently. "Special today is grilled cheese and tomato soup. Kitchen accidentally made extra." The girl looked up, suspicion warring with hunger in her expression. Sofia smiled. "No questions asked. That's our promise." As she walked away, giving the girl space to either accept or decline, Sofia felt the weight of Miguel's book in her apron pocket. In a world where kindness could be mistaken for weakness, sometimes the most revolutionary act was simply setting a plate of food before someone hungry and asking nothing in return. You might forget the story in a few days, but if nobody retells, history will remain silent forever. Subscribe to our channel, where justice, kindness, and memory are protected until the end.